Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Matt Clarke.
Got it.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure, Ken.
What a privilege.
Well.
Man. How's business? I have to think this is a challenging time.
Tell you what, Kent, the mortgage business is quite a riddle right now. Everybody came out of the woodwork looking for what the government was calling 0% interest rates.
Yeah.
And that drove scores and scores of people into the market looking to refinance.
Because they're hearing on the news and whatnot? And,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you hear on the news that the Fed reduces interest rates to zero.
Right.
People hear that and they think mortgage rates must be like free.
Okay.
And that's just not the case. And mortgage rates, while they're influenced by what the Fed does with interest rates, they're not tied to that. They're tied to a number of different things, one of which being mortgage-backed securities. They're also tied to supply and demand. And when everybody and their brother decides that they want to get a refinance done, demand goes way up. And our industry has limited capacity. Every application needs somebody to take it, originate the loan. We need to process those loans. We need to close those loans. We need to turn around and sell those loans. We need to have the capital in the marketplace to be able to fund all of those loans. And so business has been just one of those crazy times where there's an abundance of opportunity, and then there are all of these other elements that regulate capacity. So you can't do it all at once. And so it's going to be a nice, long grind through trying to get everybody in a mortgage that they're happy with.
When did you see people coming to you hearing, 0% interest, let's go ahead and refinance? Was this February? Was this January?
It was February. I mean, rates were pretty good, pretty low going into February. And towards the end of February, the sky just fell out. And people from all over came looking for refinance.
Came calling because they were after that 0% interest.
Yeah.
Are you giving anyone 0% interest?
It
I mean,
doesn't
you can't,
exist.
right? Because you're not making any money at that point. That's impossible.
It costs a bank about 3% just to put a loan on the books and make a profit. And so by the time you pay for the person to originate the loans and all of the process associated with putting it on the books, keeping some level of profit because we are a for-profit business. And so there's typically a delta between the cost that you get your money at. There's typically a delta of about 3% between what you can buy the money at and what you can sell the money at. Not always exactly 3%, but that's a good general rule of thumb.
So if you're getting the money, am I understanding this correct? If you're getting the money, say for 0%, I don't know if that's possible, but then you're going to want to go 3% on top of whatever you're getting the money for, and that's how you can make money.
Yeah, so you make money off the spread. So you might buy money at 1% to 2% and turn around and sell it somewhere around 4%.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
there are rates today under 3%, which are 15 shorter-term duration mortgages.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. When you said, generally speaking, banks are not making money under 3%, but there are some out there that are sub 3%, right?
There are.
For particular borrowers.
There are. And that stream of income comes over time in the way of the servicing premiums that you get. So every time you make a mortgage payment, you're paying several different people. So if you have, say, a 4% mortgage, let's call it a conventional Fannie Mae-based mortgage, about 3% of that was going to the underlying holder of the note, the security, the mortgage-backed security. Call it another 25 to 40 basis points is going to the person who's collecting your payments every month, the servicer. They collect your payments. They forward the money, the interest onto the bondholder. They retain money for your escrows, things like taxes and insurance. And then there are guarantee fees that you pay to Fannie Mae to guarantee to the underlying bondholder that you're going to make your payment. So Fannie Mae is really collecting insurance premiums.
I was just going to say, almost like an insurance?
Yeah, they insure the bondholder on default from the people who own the mortgages underlying that security.
Mm-hmm.
And so your 4% payment goes to a lot of different players.
Yes. Now, so I was curious kind of how the mortgage industry works, which we're getting into. And then I was also curious kind of what Churchill Mortgage, kind of what your role is on that kind of that trajectory, or those, you're one of several parties, obviously. Do you guys, what does Churchill Mortgage do here? Are you guys collecting these loans, or are you making the mortgage and then kind of moving on altogether?
We do a couple of different things. So the first thing we do is we work with people like you and all of the other folks that need to get a mortgage to either purchase a home or want to refinance the mortgage they have. And so we're working with you. We're getting you in the right loan. We're one of the only, if not the only, mortgage company that I know that believes in trying to get you to a place of what we call the real American dream, which is debt-free home ownership. We're a mortgage company that's trying to get you to stop ever having to pay your mortgage by structuring things in a way that allow you to get to a debt-free lifestyle faster.
That's not common in the mortgage industry?
Not common in the mortgage industry.
Is that why you're a good fit with Dave Ramsey's organization?
Why we're a very good fit with Dave Ramsey's organization. So after we close all of these loans, and we fund the loans ourselves. And so we
You do?
Mm-hmm. And so once we've gotten once we close the loan and we have we basically pool together a group of common loans.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your loan might be $300,000, we pool together several $1 million worth of those types of loans, and we turn around and we sell them to Fannie Mae.
Okay.
And then we sell the underlying note to Fannie Mae. We retain the servicing and make sure that you're making payments on your mortgage. Mm-hmm. And so that's our kind of role in all of this. We make the mortgage, we pool them up with other mortgages, we sell those to Fannie Mae, who in turn puts them out into Wall Street in the form of mortgage-backed securities. We retain the servicing rights, and then we send you notices each month that your payment is due. We collect that payment and manage your escrows and make sure your taxes and insurance are paid year after year after year while we're holding those servicing rights.
And do you service the loans on the notes on all of the loans you make?
Not all of them.
Okay.
Only select ones. So
yeah?
Government loans, we'll sell the servicing on those. And some conventional loans, jumbo loans, we don't retain. So we sell those as whole loan packages.
Interesting. And the jumbo loan it's a mortgage that's over $450K, right?
It depends on where you are in the country.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So, okay.
But higher loans that don't fit the underlying credit box of Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac.
Okay, gotcha.
So most of those go to large banks that keep them on their portfolios.
So you're selling nearly all of the average home that's going to use you guys for a mortgage is getting sold to Fannie Mae.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was actually thinking there was one more party in there, and then Fannie Mae just made sure if they ever had a big loss that they'd cover it. But you're selling it right to Fannie Mae.
We sell it to Fannie.
Okay.
There's an insurance premium on that transaction that they get for their guarantee to the underlying bondholder. The bondholders are the people on Wall Street that invest in mortgage-backed securities.
Okay.
And it's a funny thing with interest rates. Let's go back to where we started.
Yeah.
The more and more demand there is for the underlying bond, the higher the interest rates will go. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the stock market and the bond market work in opposite directions of each other. So if the stock market's doing really good, if the economy's booming, oftentimes mortgage rates will go up.
Okay.
If the economy's doing poorly and having bad news, oftentimes that will drive mortgage rates down.
Yes.
And so it's just a really interesting dynamic as the overall economy relates to mortgage rates.
Yeah. Now, how much discretion does Churchill Mortgage set the interest rate? You can make it whatever you want within parameters. I'm sure there's laws about price gouging or whatever, but whether you're going to give me a mortgage at 3% or 4% or 6% is largely your call.
It is.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And we generally will band our rates around quantitative elements of the borrower and the location. So your credit score, for example, may drive your interest rate up or down, depending if it's a great credit score or a poor credit score.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of money you're putting down might generate a different interest rate if you're putting 30% down in your mortgage versus 3% down on your mortgage. So there's all of these risk-based pricing that goes into kind of how we set mortgage rates.
I see. Does Dave still recommend? Shoot! Now is it 15%? 15% down, 15-year fixed rate mortgage with the payments no more than 25% of your income. Is that
You're
roughly
really
accurate?
close. 15-year fixed mortgage. He prefers 20% down, so you have no mortgage insurance.
Oh, okay.
All right, and no more than 25% of your income.
Okay, 15-year fixed rate.
Yep.
Is that what you guys recommend too, or?
We recommend that on just about every loan. However, most customers don't have the ability to do that.
Okay.
And so our job is not to be police for Dave Ramsey. It's to reinforce what he teaches and why that's a good thing. Because it does help you achieve debt-free homeownership faster.
I see.
But our job beyond that is to help you get on the right path towards that. Your starting point might be something very differently.
Yeah.
Right now, you just might not have the down payment to make, or you might not have the ability to fit into a 15-year fixed mortgage and might need to go 30-year fixed. Whatever your unique situation is, our job is to help you get into the home, the right home, not overpay for that home, not overborrow for that home, but the right home, and then get you on a path towards debt-free home ownership, which part of that path is getting you to that 15-year fixed mortgage.
I see.
That you can continue to afford and pay down in an accelerated manner. Yeah. We've helped scores of people do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So if you are, can you share what your average buyer is like? Is that confidential information as far as like, I don't know, net worth or income or the average mortgage amount that you are funding?
I can share with you a few things. The average mortgage, the average loan amount we're funding right now is around $250,000.
Okay.
The average FICO score, the average credit score is over 740, which is better than the national average. It's a really good credit score. That doesn't mean we don't work with people with much lower credit scores than that. We do. It just happens that Dave's clientele that typically will call us about a mortgage have been following his principles for a while and have started to create some good financial habits. And so we do get the benefit of his teaching to his listeners.
Interesting.
And only about 35% of what we do comes off of our advertising and our work with Dave. The rest of it comes through your normal, traditional build relationships with realtors and financial planners and do our own marketing. And that's the majority of what we do. But we do benefit by being able to offer some financial advice consistent with how Dave teaches and build that into just our practice.
Yeah. And 35% is nothing to sneeze at. So 35% of your business comes through Dave Ramsey's advertising or partnerships or whatever, sponsorships.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. And we've been at it for 26, 27 years together. So we've had some time to build that relationship.
Has Dave been doing this that long?
Uh-huh. He has.
How long has he been doing it?
20,
I remember he had
26, 27 years.
Okay,
we were his very first advertiser.
No
when
way.
He went to get on the air.
Your very first mortgage advertiser or very first advertiser, period?
We were the very first advertiser, period. And then Xander came along shortly thereafter.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Churchill Mortgage was the first advertiser to find Dave and pay him money.
Well, the founder of Churchill Mortgage and Mike Hardwick and Dave were friends.
Okay.
And they had known each other for several years. They had grown up in their financial lives together back in the 80s and built themselves. They each kind of built themselves what at the time was a nice fat net worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tax reform of 1986 hit. And I know for Mike, that act of legislation put the business he was running out of business and pushed him within weeks of personal bankruptcy. Around the same time, Dave had a big financial reversal. That's his story to tell.
Yeah.
And but it ended up putting him at a place where he felt it was his calling to help people avoid the financial traps that he got stuck in.
Okay.
And Mike had done a few things over the next few years, one of which was help start a local bank in Franklin.
Okay.
And then he founded Churchill Mortgage about the same time that Dave was getting ready to start his radio show.
Interesting. Which bank in Franklin did Mike help start?
Franklin National Bank.
Franklin National Bank.
It's a community bank, and it was located in downtown Franklin. It sold, I want to say, about 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
To Fifth Third.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you can't drive by a Franklin National Bank anymore.
can't.
It's all Fifth Third.
Yeah, well,
okay.
It's probably something else. Banking in this country continues to eat itself and regurgitate under different names on a constant basis.
Yeah, it really does.
But it is funny, Mike and his infinite vision, and when Dave said he wanted to sell him advertising and help him pay for time on the bankrupt radio station he was going to start his radio show at, Mike told him it was a dumb idea. Who's going to listen to you? And after a few back and forth, Dave finally talked him into giving him the few $100s it cost him at the time to be an advertiser on his show. And fast forward 27 years, and what an amazing ride it's been.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the 35% thing. I was just on a call this morning that has to do with a organization that distributes books across America, and Walmart. Yeah, they sell a ton of books through Walmart, and Walmart kind of has they like to have their vendors have no more than 25% of their business through Walmart because they want them to be held, And now this organization is a little bit more than that now, and so I mean it's a concern on both ends. It's a concern on the organization's end that Walmart doesn't become, 70% of their business and they kick you out of stores and you're over. Although it works to be in Walmart. You know what I mean? Like there's some risk reward there. So yeah, I mean, 35% of Churchill Mortgage business coming through Dave Ramsey's that's not a small number.
No,
it's pretty significant.
It's a pretty significant number. And one of the things that we try to do is drive that number like you said, in a nice reasonable percentage of our business over time. One of the learnings, now let's fast forward to today. One of the things that we've learned over the last 8 to 10 weeks as we've navigated business through this COVID-19 environment is that you can never have enough cash and you can never have enough options. And it's that second part, options, where it's really hurt a lot of small business to where they were singularly focused, and that singular focus eliminated their ability to stay in business. And it's been a real struggle. Thankfully, the mortgage business is one of those that have done pretty well through this process, but it's not been without its huge challenges, particularly on the capital market side.
Okay.
Cash flow coming into the industry has been a real strange riddle to solve over the last 10 weeks. As an industry, we've done it well, but it's not been an easy process.
What do you mean cash coming into the industry? You just mean more buyers or refinancers?
That's one. The business runs on capital. That capital comes from outside investors buying mortgage bonds, okay? And so making sure that there's enough external investment to buy enough of the mortgage bonds to provide the liquidity to the marketplace for companies like Churchill to have the liquidity to provide mortgages to all of the people that want mortgages.
Right.
And so the federal government, as part of what it did with a lot of its relief plans, by the way, I'm proud of the way that our federal government has handled the majority of this crisis.
Okay.
They've done things, at least from the perspective of a mortgage banker. They've done things deliberately. They've listened. They've shifted strategies. They've listened. They've done things. They've done things in a way that has really worked out well, and I'm proud of them. It's not something I would typically feel, but they've handled this really well, and so they've helped create liquidity in the marketplace, which has been a real helpful thing for a lot of buyers that need the relief of refinancing to a low rate.
Yeah. So are you saying that it's conceivable to think that at times there would be a greater demand for people to make mortgages, Churchill Mortgage to offer mortgages to people than there would be for investors or these bonds to fund those loans?
Yeah,
And then what
sometimes.
happens then? Does the
Sometimes.
Fed step in and say, here's some money? Or
Well, the Fed stepped in this time and they started buying mortgage-backed securities. So they invested a bunch of money into mortgage-backed securities, which kept liquidity flowing. Now, it
I
also
see.
created a whole nother issue we can get into in terms of margin calls and how companies like ours manage the forward commitment of putting you in a mortgage of a certain rate 30 or 60 days from now versus being able to secure that money today so we know it's going to be available to you. That was a whole nother story altogether.
So by the way, just turn that mic a little bit more towards you. That way you're speaking right into it. Perfect. Whatever's comfortable there. Just we want to be speaking right into it. So the government now owns a bunch of our houses. They've loaned us money for under the PPP to run our businesses. They have sent us money to the citizens to get by. So we really hope the government doesn't screw us here.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
The government sort of owns us at this point a little bit. I mean, if they want this money back, we're going to have an issue.
Well, yes. And so what do? What do we as citizens do? What can we control in order to make sure that we take back control over our future financial lives and release dependency on the government to support it? I mean, that's a really important question.
What would you say to that if someone asked that question?
Well, I would say find ways to add value and sustain yourself. It's easy for me to say that. I recognize being one of the lucky ones that have maintained employment throughout this process, because I know there are a lot of people out there hurting. A lot of people who didn't bring these problems on themselves, who are out of work because either their business dried up or their local governments decided they couldn't operate their business.
Right.
And man, that is a tough, tough place to be. That said, there are also a lot of thriving opportunities right now. If you've lost your job and you can go deliver for just about any delivery service, Amazon, all of the food delivery services, restaurant delivery services, there are so many ways right now to make money if you're willing to get up and go make the money. The problem is the inertia is so great because the unemployment, right? You can collect unemployment, and then there's bonus unemployment. That oftentimes is worth more than what you could go out and generate doing other work. While that's good for the short term for those people, it's rough for the long-term dependency of our citizens on the government's aid.
Yes.
And so what can we do? We can find ways to bring value to others who are willing to pay for that value in whatever form or shape it comes in. And that's how small businesses get started again. You look at what people want to pay for, what they're willing to pay for, services they need or desire that they don't want to go out and do themselves, and offer that.
Yes.
And start another business.
Yep.
And get momentum back in your own financial life and control. It's amazing the creativity that can come out of the pressure of the situation that we're in as a culture. And I think it's through that creativity and intervention that we're going to find some people turn great ideas into massively successful businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, back to Dave again. That's exactly what happened there. I mean, if everything would have went good with whatever he was doing, real estate, I think it was flipping houses or something, then he might still be doing that, you know?
He might still be
doing that. So you think
that.
during this time, there's no doubt we're going to have businesses that go away and stay away. Businesses are going to die. Some businesses are going to die. Plenty of businesses are going to die through this whole thing. However, new ones will crop up based on the opportunity, based on the pressure. It's almost like a crucible, and it will generate or produce new ideas, new businesses. Is that how you're seeing it?
New languages, new ways to interact with each other, new ways to provide value and services to each other. If we step back and think about, man, I wish I had fill in the blank. Think about all of the new ways that we as people have come to interact with each other just in the last 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
I spend most of my day today on video calls.
Oh, gosh.
I don't even do phone calls anymore with our team because so many of them are working remotely.
Yeah.
Well, how many new services are going to be popping up that provide a bigger, faster, better, more interactive video conferencing service?
Yes. Yes.
All right. You can order anything you want and have it delivered anywhere you want right now.
Yes.
Who's going to handle all of the logistics of all of that?
Mm-hmm.
The drone services that are going to start popping up to provide things. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
What can happen.
I think it's time for I think it's called a holograph. I think it's time for that to go mainstream, where you can see the video of a person standing there. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm actually a holograph right now.
Are you really?
I'm sitting
That'd be
in my
awesome.
truck, just portraying myself in this chair.
It's actually pretty high quality.
It's pretty
to be
good.
honest with you.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell, could you, Lincoln, that he's just a holograph right
totally
now?
do, Tim. Yeah.
Have you ever watched the TV show Silicon Valley?
I have not.
Okay. Well, it's a comedy. It's not the cleanest, but there is a scene in there that's pretty hilarious. It has to do with the holograph, and it's actually Silicon Valley is actually it's more real than you would think. It's actually fairly real. It would have been like a lot of what was happening probably 10 years ago in the Valley. But there's one scene where they're coming out with, I mean, you'd think at this point, like we'd be able to have a holograph like really actually work, but it's super complicated. And there's just one scene where they're trying to get it to work and it wouldn't work. I mean, you know how video calls can be sometimes. It's super frustrating. So,
but you think about what you just said there. You think back to the television show Star Trek.
mm-hmm.
When they're out in space and they pick up this device in their hand and they flip it open, it's their communication device, and they're talking to somebody across the universe.
Yeah.
Well, now we do everything.
Yeah.
On that communication device called our cell phone.
Yeah.
And if you think about the quality of the video that a cell phone captures today, why couldn't it project that video back in the form of a holograph? The technology exists.
Yes.
So when you say we're going to be communicating in real life and through it's probably true.
No, I wouldn't disagree. I think it's a matter of time. And now these phones with facial recognition, they have our facial imprint. And so the thought that can get kind of reproduced somewhere else it's not that foreign. I think we just need the cell phone data. Like we need that to be plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. That is a good way to think about it, is instead of kind of woe is me and all these struggles, let's look for the opportunities. Now, what are your thoughts on, because also what's going to come out of this is going to speak to the beauty of capitalism, because there was one, I can't remember the book now that I'm reading, but or was reading, I don't think it was The Wealth of Nations, but it had to do with capitalism, and it was talking about the fact that people don't know what goes into making a pencil. Like, you have to have a mining company, and they've got to get the coal, and that's its own industry. And then within that industry is a bunch of companies, and one of those companies is going to sell some coal. But you also need wood, so you have the forestry industry, and within that industry, you have a bunch of companies. One of those companies cuts down trees and makes wood, but then you have another company that uses that wood to take it to the next step, and then another company altogether. That there's just so many industries involved in making a pencil, and then there's companies within those industries, and that's what it takes to make a pencil. And if you want to go like full on communism or socialism, where you have like one person or one power that dictates all of this that needs to get done, it's not going to happen. We wouldn't have what we enjoy in this country if it was all engineered by a mastermind somewhere. You know what I mean? We have what we have because all these people are out there with these ideas, and they're taking advantage, and they're starting things, and all of this, the risk and reward. And some people want to put in the work, but they don't have the money. Other people fund it because they don't want to put in the time, but they have the money. Like, it's just so complex of what it takes to make really what we enjoy in this country. But it's great, but then also the downside is when the government steps in and like says, yeah, y'all need to go home for 2 months. Like, what are your thoughts? Did we overreach here?
That's a tough one. I love your discussion around the whole supply chain and the creativity that comes from managing the supply chain. And if you can provide one of those little things at a fraction less than somebody else and at the same quality, all of a sudden you have a business.
Yeah.
And a booming business.
Yep.
And so your question was, do we think that the government acted too quickly or too rash by shutting things down? I don't think so. Now, where I struggle in this is I have a pretty strong opinion myself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things that I've learned through this process is that we all see the world through our own lens.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our own set of fears, our own set of anxieties, our own set of hopes and dreams and things that we want for ourselves, our families, and or our businesses. And throughout my family, I have family spread from coast to coast, from Massachusetts out to California to Tennessee, and several places in between. And it feels like each one of us, depending on the region and the location that we're in, that drove a certain level of anxiety around this COVID that we're battling. If you're talking to my family up in the Northeast, they're still pretty terrified.
Mm-hmm.
They get hit pretty hard. I was talking to one mortgage company owner out of New Jersey who knew 9 people who died of COVID and still had 2 of his employees on respirators fighting. Right? At Churchill, we had one person that we know of that got diagnosed with COVID, and we have over 500 employees.
Oh, wow.
And so depending on where you are regionally,
Yeah.
I think is the answer to that question, as well as who you are and how healthy you are, because it does impact, although recent cases are coming out that even healthy people are having some real negative responses to it. And so the bottom line for me is it's not my opinion matters very little.
Sure.
My opinion is tainted
Yep.
by my perspectives and my fear and my anxiety, which I don't have a lot of fear or anxiety. But I'm also lucky enough to be in a region that wasn't as relatively hard hit as others.
Yeah.
In a business that's still operating.
Yep.
And I'm of an age and health that is less worried about getting sick.
Yeah.
And so too fast or too slow, time will tell.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, again, everyone has their opinions on it, so this is only an opinion. But I don't know that I fault the government for doing what they did at the time that they did it. I mean, it was so unknown. It was so strange. It was so powerful. It was going just gangbusters. Action needed to be taken because it could have turned out very, very badly. I think where I'm having some struggles now at this point is we have so much more information now, May the 20th or whatever it is today, 19th, whatever. We know so much more about it now, mid-May, than we did mid-January or the end of January. And it seems like there's pockets across the country, California may be a good example, where they're not reopening as quickly as I would have thought based on the information that's now at hand. Like Tennessee, for example, February, March, and April, we had 10 times as many people die from pneumonia as COVID. Now, pneumonia is an awful death. COVID's an awful death. Any death is awful. I mean, I get it. I mean, it's hard to talk about these things sometimes without like sounding crass.
Yeah.
But it's going to have I'd be curious on what your thoughts are on the economy going forward, but it's going to have an effect even on these like beloved, risk takers and people that want to start a venture, these new business owners that have an idea and they step out. Don't you think it's going to be in the back of people's minds like, man, they can start this. They're going to take a risk. They have a great idea, but they're going to think about it a little bit differently than they would have 4 months ago, because now there's this question in the back of my mind is not only do I have to worry about the idea, the finances, is it going to work? Is it going to make money? Is it going to be profitable? Is it going to grow? Can it actually work? We've got that as a concern, but now we have this precedent where if, crap really hits the fan, someone might knock on my door and just shut me down.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
And that's going to affect, that's got to be in people's heads a little bit.
It's got to be in people's heads because I've got a brother who lives out in California, and him and his wife own a couple of businesses that are all kind of event-based businesses. And they've been completely shut down because those are not essential businesses. Nobody can come do those things. Concert venues, sporting businesses. It's crazy. And yeah, the fear of it happening again has got to be a huge deterrent. And so the economy, I think, has probably a couple of years of recovery, especially small business, even longer. And I don't know what the percentage of employees are employed by a small business in this country, but I bet it's nearly half. And if states don't allow those small businesses to reopen, I think there has to be a continuation of the aid that's being provided to those people so that they can continue to keep their folks employed and food on the table.
Yeah.
I think that's a better solution than a massive unemployment bill.
Yes,
Because
totally agree.
Yeah, because then they have a chance to reopen. Now, just remember, when they reopen, it doesn't mean people are going to show up.
Exactly.
And so there's a whole nother issue
Yep.
in terms of what is the public's propensity to re-engage in bars, in restaurants, in other places where you physically go to conduct business. And I think again, fear is going to slow that down.
I totally agree. And it shouldn't come as a surprise because the one thing that has been accomplished pretty successfully is the amount of information that we've been able to pump out to the American public about all of this and the frenzy that we've kind of been able to create. And again, it might be very well founded. I mean, I am not a doctor here. You know what I mean? I'm not what's the term? Like, I'm not into infectious disease. I don't know about these things, but I mean, I am paying it a little bit of attention. And I think the one thing that seems to be apparent now also is, man, one of the best ways to combat this, which it goes for other viruses. I mean, people need to realize there's always viruses out there. It's like, well, let's stay home until the virus is gone. Well, there's always viruses out there. People die from viruses every single day, and they're going to continue. The best way to combat that actually is to be healthy, is to have a healthy lifestyle. And that's now very apparent with COVID-19 as well. And so one of the hopes, I guess, for kind of seeing something like this kind of sweep through the country was maybe there'd be like a renewed interest in or focus on just easy ways to be healthy, what you're eating or getting outside or having some. But what's interesting is and this is getting a little off topic, but I mean, it's proven now that vitamin D, for example, is very beneficial with battling COVID-19. Well, you know where you get vitamin D is the sun. Well, guess what we've been asked to do the last 2 months? Stay inside. So everyone's now vitamin D deficient, which is one of the best ways to combat this. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. I suspect that this whole thing will kind of pass through, and we won't learn that lesson that a healthy lifestyle is pretty important. I think it's going to pass over our heads, is my guess, for the general American public. And I mean, I think one example of that could be, and I don't want to rail here, but because I know a lot of this stuff kind of gets lost in translation and people are making these policy decisions at a high level and just weird things are going to happen. I understand that. But now restaurants are open in Nashville, but our gym, I go to CrossFit like half a mile from here. Guess what? The CrossFit gym is not allowed to be open yet. We had opened. We weren't supposed to, but we opened a week and a half.
Won't say anything.
Well, we got shut back down again. We opened 2 weeks ago, and it worked for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And a health inspector and a cop showed up, and I don't think there was any fines involved, but they shut them back down again. However, you could go walk down the street and go into a restaurant and buy beer and hang out. And, it's just like, it seems a little like a double standard.
Definitely is a double standard. I'm really glad you brought it up because for years, one of the things that we teach and talk about with our team and our families is exactly that taking care of yourself first leads to better living everywhere else. And so even take aside this COVID situation that we're in, where health is paramount. Over the general course of your life, if you take care of yourself first, you're better off for other people.
Yeah.
And if so, a great morning routine to get yourself up and feed your mind. I don't care what you feed it with. Feed it with something that nourishes your mind, your heart, right? Have a grateful spirit. and physically exercise every single day, if you do that every single day first, you're going to have a better chance of that day bringing value to others.
Yeah, that's a great way
Because
to put
you're going to have your mind right, you're going to have your heart right, your blood's going to be pumping, you're physically going to be fit, and you're going to feel better with more energy.
Yes.
Period. You're better off for others. So you're not going to be as good for others unless you're really good for yourself first. And so that's one of the things that we've been teaching for years is that get up and get a great morning routine. If you want to be successful, take care of yourself. If you want to feel better, take care of yourself. If you want to learn how to deal with stress and anxiety better, get up and take care of yourself. All of it leads to your ability to cope with the stresses and challenges of life better off than if you hadn't. Now introduce COVID. Introduce the fact that the people who are more apt to get sicker longer and even die are those that are not as healthy as others. Not in every case. It's not an absolute statement like you. I'm not a doctor of infectious disease, and I haven't studied any of that. I just know what I read and I hear. And one of the best ways that you can fight getting sick from corona or anything else is activity, is staying healthy, eating right, exercise. I think activity is so important. If you sit still all day long, your body deteriorates. Your lungs aren't processing what comes in your lungs. Your bloodstream's not flowing and processing and filtering the toxins that are in your bloodstream.
Yes.
That activity is important to create a body that's healthy enough to fight infection and bacteria, which we're all ingesting all the time. This one just happens to be nasty.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And I love what you said about vitamin D. We had Dr. Ming Wang here in Nashville give a talk to our company, our employees, about the things that he has been studying about COVID and kind of the 10 truths about COVID. And one of them was how to fight it. And one of the recommendations is sunbathing. Get in the sun. Get into temperatures above 77, 78 degrees. Right? Get that vitamin D, and that's one of the things that this virus doesn't like.
Interesting.
Now, fact or not, I heard it. I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
It seems to make sense. But you're right. Getting out, getting that activity, getting that vitamin D, not only does it keep you healthier, it keeps you active, it keeps your mind moving, and it allows you possibly to get beyond the fear and anxiety of being quarantined and or forced to be unemployed, and might spark energy, creativity, innovation in a future.
Yes, 100%. I always think about, and when it comes to discussing these types of things, I think about like the people who roamed this land first, like the Native Americans. Like they were. I just picture them as fairly healthy. You know what I mean? Like they were going out and shooting things and skinning it and eating it and going to war and riding horses and playing with their kids, you know, in the field by the stream and like all of these different things. And if you take one of those warriors and be like, nah, you just sit in your teepee for the next 3 months. We'll bring you food. We'll have this other guy that brings you food. And you can leave, you know, to use the restroom, but that's it. Like pretty much stay in your teepee. And worse yet, throw the whole family in there with him for 3 months. Those guys would rot. You know what I mean? Like they are meant to be out fighting battles.
Only one would come out alive in that situation.
That's very true. Very true. What were some of those other 10 tips on battling COVID from that doctor?
You know, he talked a lot about the masks and why to wear a mask is not so much to keep the germs out, but to prevent you from touching your nose and your mouth.
Really?
Most of the ways that the virus gets in is through the touching of your nose and your mouth or your eyes. Those are kind of the three places that he believes the virus was getting into people's body. So that was one really important element. Hand sanitizing, washing your hands, basic stuff that you've heard. In fact, he shared a thought that the virus can actually live in the air for like 6 to 8 hours and hangs out in the air. for 6 to 8 hours, and it lives on porous surfaces for longer. And so wiping things down, hand sanitizing, wearing a mask to prevent yourself from infecting yourself from other things that you've touched, sunbathing, staying active. It was a really interesting commentary he gave on that.
That's fascinating. Is he a doctor here in Nashville?
He's an eye doctor.
In Nashville?
Yeah, he's one of the most known LASIK eye surgeons in the world.
Oh wow.
And he's one, talk about being innovative. Think about the opportunity. He is a LASIK surgeon. That is a non-essential process, right? Those surgeries are not needed right now.
Yeah.
So his business is shut down. So what he did is he went and he studied COVID, and he learned everything he could about it. And he is hosting free talks and conference calls to people in business all over this country and all over the world. And he's sharing this information and he's helping people. And you ask him to give a talk to a group of folks, he'll come in and he'll give a talk to a group of folks about COVID and what he's learned and what's the most up-to-date information and how you can provide medical information around protecting you and your team. He's done it thousands of times. What is he creating for himself when things open up? A huge referral network for future business.
Yeah.
He's taking this opportunity to bring value to us, to the population,
Yep.
and at the same time, create a market opportunity for him to take advantage of in the future, because now all of these folks that need LASIK surgery tomorrow are going to think of Dr. Ming Wang and how much value he provided them throughout this process.
Yeah.
I bet his business is off the charts in the future.
It's a safe bet. What part of the country does he practice?
Here in Nashville.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so he is here, but he's traveling around with these talks. Interesting. Back to the health. You mentioned that it sounds like you guys are teaching some of those things. Now, was that you or is that Churchill Mortgage? And are you just teaching those things about health to your employees or to your customers? Or
Well, we primarily will be coaching our employees. One of the things that we do a lot of is talk about our core convictions about our business. Anybody can do mortgages. But we want our company to be full with people who have shared convictions, that want to go to work each day and battle arm in arm because we have shared beliefs. We believe in treating families and serving people and each other the same way. So one of the core convictions that I talk about it's the last one I talk about, but probably the most important, which is mornings matter. And I talk about my morning routine as part of something that I do every single day without exception because I'm better for that. And if you come to work here, or if you do work here at Churchill Mortgage, you should expect me to be at my best. And that's my commitment to you. And this is how I'm going to engineer that behavior in my life and create those disciplines and what I read, what I write, how I pray or meditate, and what I do for exercise, and that I do it every day without exception, because if I do that, I'm better off for you.
Yeah.
And you should expect my best. And guess what, Ken? If you come to work here, I'm going to expect your best. And that's one way that I think you can engineer better being in your life, is by taking care of you first, because the world doesn't tell you you're worth it. But I'm telling you, you are.
Yeah. The world doesn't tell you you're worth it.
Yeah. The world doesn't encourage you to be the best you. The world encourages you to get out and just do for it. And it very rarely will you ever hear people tell you, Kent, before you go and serve all of these people and take care of all those things and get on that kind of hamster wheel and just run. Right? That's what the world tells you to do. Buy all this stuff. Look better than you think you need to be, buy more house, spend more money, go into more debt, eat more fast food, right? Run according to how you just want to run, your natural desires, and just go.
Yep.
Who should tell you no?
Yep.
And I tell you, I think you're worth a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I think you're worth getting up 30 minutes early every day and reading a devotional book or your Bible or something that nourishes you regardless of your religion. I think you're worth writing things down and journaling a little bit about your life every day and processing those anxieties that you might feel because you feel them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're worth taking that time for yourself. I think you're worth praying or meditating and thanking the Lord for all the great things you have, because a grateful spirit is an attractive trait. People want to be around happy, grateful people.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be around jerks.
Yeah.
And you're worth getting up and exercising. Give yourself 10 minutes or an hour every day of exercise. You're worth that.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting perspective. I don't think I've heard it put quite like that before with what the world is saying, and then here's what we're saying. I love that, because what I really like about that is there's something about, I don't know what the term is here. Winners, that's going to sound too prideful, so let's not go with that. But people that want to give their best and perform their best, when they get around other people like that, they have the natural inclination is to rise up, and I'm gonna rise up to the challenge. Then there are some of those people where that's a turnoff. It's like, oh, if that's what you're doing there, no thanks. Like, that's going to challenge me. That's going to make me feel bad. I want to distance myself. And so I guess that's even one of the values of having these core values or convictions, is that you're going to attract the people that you want to attract and sort of repel the people that probably you don't really, they're not going to be a great fit. So they should probably go do something else.
And that's why we talk about them. Because one of the other things we talk about is I want to be the hardest working person in the room. Working hard is a virtue. If you're going to do something, choose to do it with all that you got. Lazy people kind of suck.
Yeah.
And they suck you down with them. And I want to be known as the hardest working person in the room, but surrounded by others that want that also.
Yes.
And I think that when people are repelled by that, in many ways, not in all cases, but in many ways, because I'm not here to cast judgment, I think it's a confidence issue. Right? I think it's a confidence and it's a doubt issue. And I have one of my children has a core conviction that says you can outwork your doubts. Right? And so doubts create fear, which creates paralysis, which creates the desire to not put yourself into those situations where you may be either called out, not win, or find out that you're not able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it goes back to that last core conviction of mornings matter. If you get in a healthy, disciplined habit of caring for you first and creating those physical disciplines, guess what happens? Your confidence goes up. Your ability and your desire to work goes up. When your work goes up, all of a sudden you realize with a little extra work and a little extra discipline and a little extra focus, that thing I'm doubtful of, that fear, I can work through that.
Yes.
And if I work through enough of those, my confidence goes up.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, I'm putting myself out there a little bit more.
Yep.
And it's just a healthy cycle of creating positive energy around you. And the other part of that is it does attract people. It attracts not just people, but with people, it attracts opportunity. Successful people are generally happy and grateful. They're not happy and grateful because they're successful. They're successful because they chose earlier on in their life to be happy and grateful and work hard, and that drew opportunities close to them, and they had the confidence to take advantage of those opportunities.
I think this is a huge issue. I think this is a massive, I think this is what may seem like a small thing that it's like a small degree change over a long period of time makes a big, big difference. And this is what we're talking about, because the other side of it is you were talking about having fear and anxiety and then how that kind of spirals down. Well, it doesn't just stop at like no action. Like it goes into bitterness and cynicism and then just that loop that you can get stuck in. And then you're looking at other people that are successful and you're thinking that they are happy and disciplined because they are successful and you're not. And so then that you just would never try to get there and you sort of harbor that against them or hold that against them. I mean, I've even had some of these thoughts myself in the last 15 years, like, and so, but man, just starting somewhere and doing something positive and building on that and building on that and just kind of getting some momentum going in a positive direction that can make a big difference over a long period of time.
Can make all the difference.
What is your morning routine?
So, yeah, I get up every morning. I get up early.
What time?
My alarm typically goes off around 5.
Okay.
And so it's not super early, but it's early.
That's
enough,
early.
And I generally am up doing something by 5:30. I'll admit I don't always hop right out of bed.
Okay.
But
are you, sorry to interrupt, but would you consider yourself like more of a morning person, or is that hard every single day to get up at 5 or 5:30?
I look forward to it now.
Okay.
I've been doing this for probably 15 or 20 years, the same routine. And so I get up, I get my books, and I read. While I'm reading, I write. So I read and I write. I personally read my Bible every day and a couple of devotional books, and engineered different types of devotional books because I'm feeding myself parental things. I'm feeding myself leadership things. And I've just made the decision years ago that I had never read the Bible. So about 15 or so years I started, and I gave myself a very specific way I was going to read through it. And so I do it a little bit every day. It's a big book, but just like any other big task, one baby step at a time. And so over the course of 2 years, you'll kind of get through the whole thing. I read a chapter in the Old Testament, a chapter in the New Testament. I read a couple of verses in Proverbs, and I read a psalm.
Every morning,
without exception. And I read these devotional books. And I write. I'll write like I did this morning of the variety of things that I was anxious about all night. Right? I was up all night last night thinking about all the things I have to do at work and all that stuff. And, you have those nights where it piles on. Well, when I get up and I read and I write those things down, they no longer own me. I've taken captive those anxieties and those thoughts, and I've put them on paper. I write a little something about what's happening today. Hey, I'm going to go do the Lapp podcast today. Yesterday, this happened. Not a lot, but enough. My story's going to be important one day, just like yours is. We don't realize that, but it is. Your great-great-grandchildren are going to want to know about you and your life and your thoughts, and what a legacy to leave them by taking a few minutes every morning and just write them down. So I read, I write, I'll pray and meditate as part of that. Sometimes I'll write out my prayers. All right? And then I exercise. If the gym's open, I love going to the gym. It's not. But I can do push-ups and crunches and body weight squats at home. Right? And I can do them in a hotel room, or I can do them in the jungle of Honduras if I'm out doing a mission trip somewhere. Doesn't matter where I do them. I can do all of those things regardless of where I am. So I had to engineer a morning routine that lacked excuses. So I don't give myself an excuse. If I have a 6 o'clock flight, I can get up at 3 a.m., lay in the closet with my books and do some push-ups and do my reading before I head to the airport.
You do that?
Even
if you got to get up at 3 to make your morning routine?
Every morning. And the reason I do is because it's worth it. Because not doing it is too easy. And if I want to do what I say I do, because I give this talk a lot, I better well do it, or I'm being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And so I don't really care. My family knows I'm obsessive with this. But I've chosen to get up because the one thing I can control is what time I get out of bed. And I love my family. I want to give them every minute of my time. But I know what time they're going to get up if we're at home and we're not doing something. So I just have to get up that much early to not take away from our time and get my time in. So, every morning without exception, read, write, pray, exercise. Not a ton of each one, unless I have a lot of time, but a little. And it's those little disciplines and habits in life over time that make a huge, huge difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How long does all that take?
I could do it in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Right? If I had to, I can do it in 20 minutes. I can do some push-ups, read, do some push-ups, read, do some push-ups, read, write a little bit, get in the shower and go. If I have time, I'll read and write for 30 minutes to an hour, and I'll exercise for an hour. I mean, if I have to be at work at 8:39 and I know the family's not up and stirring, and I get up at 5:30, I can read from 5:30 to 6:30. I can exercise from 6:30 to 7:30. I've now had 2 hours of amazing time, giving myself time to process my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of the exercise, quite frankly, is quiet time. Because you're
Right.
thinking, right? You're
Yeah.
doing stuff, and it gives you the opportunity to process anxieties, because it's in the processing of those anxieties that you're allowed to be a more effective leader, both at home and at work, because you get a lot of stuff thrown at you. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to react to it
Mm-hmm.
instead of respond to it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And if you've already just worked out some of the anxieties, worked out some of the things that you personally have inside you to work out, now those are gone. You're calm, you're confident, you're energized, your mind's open. You've brushed off the night and you're ready for the day.
Yeah. And there's actually like a physiological, like a physical or biological change that happens when you work out like that. It's not like you work out, it's like, I happen to feel good. No, there's actually things going on in your mind and your body that you will feel better. Helps with depression, like a lot of those things.
It helps a lot with those things. And you think about what you just said. Think of all the depression that people are facing through the quarantine of the last 8 to 10 weeks if they don't have disciplined behavior to give themselves the physical activity to combat that. It's got to be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I get down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I struggled during some of this time.
Mm-hmm.
But I look forward to the mornings because I know every morning I'm going to process it.
Mm-hmm.
And every day. So I'm not carrying it from day to day to day.
Yeah. What kind of gym do you go to when it's open?
I've been a member at D1 in Cool Springs for a long time. I've got a little bit of a weight set in my garage, but honestly, the majority of my time is done doing just things I don't need equipment or others for. Because there's no excuse.
Even at D1?
Well, if I go to D1, I'll do whatever the programs are that do that.
I don't know much about that, about D1. What, do you go for a particular class time, or you drop in any time and do your thing? I'm
a creature of habit.
Okay.
All right. And so I was always at the same time when I would go, and then from there I could go to work.
Yeah. So so D1 does have like class times.
Classes,
okay.
Yep.
That's what I love about CrossFit too, is they were expecting me at 11:30. I like the midday one, although you talking, it makes me want to reconsider the morning thing. But
if you can do it consistently,
yeah,
that's the key. For me in my life, I found I could not be consistent except first thing. I just couldn't be consistent. It's kind of like saving money. You're not going to save money if you only save what you have left over.
Yes, it's a key point.
You're going to save money if you save first.
Mm-hmm.
And then spend what's left. If you only save what's left, you're not going to save.
Yes.
Consistently. You might here and there. That's the way my life has been. I know that I can't control anything but what time I get up and what I do with the first hours of the day. Because after that, I'm serving others.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a self-righteous way, but I've got family. We've got workers. We've got a company. We've got friends. We've got activities. We've got, most people have baseball games and recitals and dinners and this event and that event. And so if I tried to do it other than in the morning, I'd be 50% at best. And last I remember, 50% is an F.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. What time are you going to bed in the evening?
We don't go to bed too late unless we have stuff going on. So I'm in bed by 10 o'clock.
Okay. Sleeping generally by 10:30, 11?
10:30, 11.
Okay.
So I'm getting a good 7 hours of sleep, generally speaking, which I think is about the right amount.
Yeah. I'm a baby when it comes to sleep. That's kind of been so I've tried to get up at 5 for years. In the last couple of years, the last good number of years, I've quit and I'm a happier person. Although, maybe it doesn't need to be 5. Maybe 6 could work or something. But yeah, if I try to get up at 5, I feel like I got to be in bed by 9:30, sleeping by 9:45 or 10 at the latest. And then if you can't quite, then now I'm pissed, and it's just it would snowball sometimes. You mentioned prayer and meditation. Do you meditate every morning?
I pray every morning.
Okay.
And every now and then I will meditate. I quite frankly find a lot of my meditation comes in the middle of the night. I don't have the practice of meditation down like some others do.
Yeah.
But the process of quietly turning things off and just relaxing, clearing your mind, and just trying to create some headspace, that happens to me a lot at night. I'm a light sleeper, so I wake up a lot. And so I'll just lay there, and I'll do one or two things to get back to rest. I'll either recite a certain psalm or prayer over and over again, and usually I go through that 2 or 3 times and I'm asleep, or I'll just try to clear my mind and relax.
So it's not uncommon for you to wake up once or twice?
4 or 5 times.
4 throughout the night?
Yeah, I wake up
How
a lot.
long are you awake?
Not long. Like I said, a few minutes here, a few minutes there.
Okay.
Sometimes 30 minutes. It just depends what I've got on my mind that caused me to wake up, which is, again, the practice of taking captive those thoughts and anxieties, because usually what wakes you up is something you're anxious about.
Yeah.
Well, you got to process that.
Yeah. So it's not waking up like, oh, I think someone's in the house. It's not even that. It's just, no, you just kind of wake up a little bit, and you drift back to sleep. The
mind starts going, and so then what do you do?
Wow, that's
toss
fascinating.
a turn and be intentional about it.
Yeah, interesting. So then how did you wind up at Churchill Mortgage, and what I'd even like to know a little bit about your upbringing, like what part of the country you were raised in.
I grew up in Boston. I grew up in the Massachusetts area.
That's why I like you.
Yeah.
And from the Northeast.
I am.
So I was not from Boston, from upstate New York. I like running into fellow Northeasterners.
It's
something
fun
about
down
them.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town outside of Boston, about an hour away, called Sturbridge, which is right on the border of Connecticut. And so we were 2 hours from Manhattan, an hour from Boston, 45 minutes from Hartford, an hour from Providence. It was a great place to grow up, because you can get to the beach or any one of those cities within an hour or two's drive, which was pretty cool. My older brother was working for a company called Service Merchandise. You might remember the catalog showroom department store. They were headquartered down here in Cool Springs. And he was a manager at a store in New Hampshire and got transferred from a manager training program down here while I was in grad school at UMass. And I would visit him. And I just fell in love with Nashville. He decided to stay in Nashville. I left grad school and moved down because there was so much energy. This is 25 years ago. So there was so much energy in this booming city of Nashville.
Even then?
Even then. Broadway was being cleaned up. It was being transformed from porn shops and bookstores into restaurants and bars and entertainment things. First Avenue was kicking. And so it was just one of those cities that had an energy and a vibe that a guy at 23 could really find himself enjoying.
Yeah.
And so I moved and got a job in the insurance business.
You single at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
I got a job in the insurance business at a company called CNA Insurance, and ultimately worked my way at that job into being the corporate controller for 3 divisions: individual life, long-term care, and annuities. We ran those companies out at a building just past the airport. If you're heading east on I-40 past the airport on your left-hand side, it's now like a school of art, but it's a big white Legion of Doom-looking building. And those are where we ran those insurance companies until 9/11
Yeah, I know
hit.
what you mean. Oh, wow.
And then when 9/11 hit, the company, which was a global organization, had a lot of risk that it had covered in buildings, the physical structures of the World Trade Center. They had a lot of group life coverage on a lot of the businesses that were decimated, that were in the World Trade Center. They took a pretty big financial hit. Coming out of that, they basically sold off a number of their profitable divisions to raise capital for the larger enterprise. And so the companies that I was the controller for, we had to chop up and sell. So we did that for a couple of years, and then I was out of work. And I just sent my resume all over Nashville, and it landed on Mike Hardwick's desk, who was the founder of Churchill Mortgage. He had it running for 10 or so years, and he was going from being a mortgage broker to a mortgage banker. mortgage broker where you take a customer and you take another bank's mortgage product, you put them together, they close, you collect your check and commissions.
Almost like a salesperson of sorts. Okay,
right.
yeah.
Thinking about it that way. They're not manufacturing the car, but he's selling you the car. When you buy the car from the manufacturer, he gets a commission.
Got it.
That's kind of what mortgage brokers do. We mortgage bankers take their own capital, fund the loan, they underwrite the loan, they close the loan, they fund the loan, they package the loan up with other like loans, and then they sell the pools of loans in the back in the secondary market or to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And so he was going from being a mortgage broker to a mortgage banker and needed financial help and getting and not money, but people that know finances and accounting and people that could just help him create that part of the business. And I was just lucky enough to get my resume to land on his desk at the right time.
And so you got involved with Churchill Mortgage right at the time it was going from a brokerage to a banker?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So you've sort of been, in that respect, you've been there kind of from the ground up.
Well, from that respect, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
What were you hired for initially?
To be the controller.
Right?
There was no accounting or finance staff. Everything was outsourced to bookkeepers and CPAs, and so that's kind of where I started.
Started as a controller.
Yeah, and then just kind of grew from there.
And now you're CFO and COO.
Yes.
And so obviously you're one of the key leaders, and then Mike. And how many others are on this kind of leadership, the key leadership team?
Our leadership team has about 10 people that we kind of lead the group through. I've got a controller, head of capital markets, chief marketing officer, head of technology, head of compliance, several sales leaders that we run things through.
And are they reporting to you?
They are.
Okay. And is there others kind of at your level along with Mike, or are you and Mike really kind of?
Generally, Mike, myself, and Mike's son, Lawson, who's in his early 30s, we kind of run the company together.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of been the legacy plan, right? Mike's about 20 years older than I am. I'm 15 to 20 years older than Lawson is.
Okay.
And so we have kind of this multi-generational leadership triangle that we kind of run the company through, so that at some point Lawson will be in a great place to kind of lead and run the company. And he's a great leader.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Are you 50 yet?
I turned 49 on Monday.
Okay. All right. I was trying to do the math between Lawson and 15, 20 years. Well, you and Mike must have, you guys have been working closely together then for close to 20 years, right? You must have a good working dynamic.
Yeah, a little over 17 years, and we do. Mike, one of my other core convictions I talk about, which is be the expert. Being the expert means if you're going to choose to do something, choose to do it with a level of expertise, which requires constant learning. One of the secrets to my career has been my willingness to take on new things and dive in and learn them. So being the expert, constantly be learning, constantly be studying, constantly be reading. But two other elements are really important here. One is have the humility to recognize you can't be the expert at everything, and surround yourself with people who are. In a small business, as you're growing it, you can't always do that and afford to do that right up front.
Mm-hmm.
But as you are able to afford to do that, identify the things that somebody else can do better than you, hire them, and let them do it, which frees you up to grow and do more of other things, which continues to help you build your team and your company.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of being the expert is identifying mentors and seek them out. People that have been there, done that. People that have, accomplished things you'd like to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And people that love you enough to speak truth and you have the humility to listen to it. And Mike has been one of the great mentors in my life. He's treated me like a son in many ways and has poured into me far beyond I would have ever expected to be poured into.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's wonderful. So then back to Churchill Mortgage. It didn't sound like business is doing too bad. Is that because you don't own these mortgages? And if economic downturns or a whole bunch of people are losing their jobs and they can't pay their mortgage. It's not like you guys are the ones that now are not getting paid, but I would still think it has an adverse effect on your business.
It does. It does. The forbearance laws under the CARES Act have had a negative impact temporarily on the people holding servicing rights because they're not collecting those mortgage payments. So that underlying asset called the servicing right isn't worth as much, and it had a negative impact on those assets. But the other programs and aid that the government put out in terms of how to manage through some of those forbearance opportunities for clients has helped in many ways. And so the industry itself, I think, is doing quite well.
It's kind of, I guess, for not knowing more about it, I'm a little bit surprised to hear that. I'm pleased that it's doing as well as it is. Now, your cash flow would have been affected because as these mortgage payments come in, a slice of that comes to you guys for servicing it, right? Mm-hmm. So, all right. So if someone, if a house needs to be foreclosed on, God forbid, sure, you're not owning that mortgage or that note, so you don't have that risk. However, your cash flow is decreased if these payments stop or decrease for a period of time. So it still has, you guys still have to navigate that then.
You have to navigate it. Yeah. So thankfully, we're not a large servicer, and we don't service government loans. And government loan servicing has some different requirements than conventional Fannie Mae loan servicing does. And we didn't have this huge book to where that was such a big part of our cash flow that it was hugely negative to us. It was to others, because the other effect on that is not only are you not collecting the cash flow, most companies will hold those servicing rights on their balance sheet, and that's an asset. A lot of companies have leveraged that asset, borrowed money to put it on their balance sheet.
I see.
And so now the asset, because people aren't paying, the valuation on that asset goes down. So they all of a sudden become underwater on the servicing asset compared to the liability they took on to finance it.
I see.
And so that was another one of the dynamics that really had a negative impact on our industry, in that a lot of these large servicers all of a sudden were struggling to keep their balance sheet balanced and their creditors happy because of the value of that servicing portfolio taking a pretty big hit. And so that was another one of the riddles that we had to solve for about 4 weeks as we worked through this crisis as it related to our business. Every single day presented a different riddle to solve, because as we talked about earlier, there are a lot of different elements in the supply chain of a mortgage. And each one of those elements were impacted, but impacted differently. And the timing of how that impact hit us as a business, it kind of felt like we were playing whack-a-mole.
Right.
So you'd solve one problem and 2 others would pop up, and then you'd quack and hit those and 2 others would pop up. And that was a game that we played. And so one of the things we chose to do as a leadership team for several weeks, and we're still doing it in a small way now, a couple of times a week, is for about 3 weeks, Mike and I and Lawson and the head of our capital markets team, we would meet every morning, assess the day, navigate, and then we'd meet every evening, assess the day, navigate, and quite frankly, pray over our business for wisdom and for us as for rest. And that was a really good team approach to carrying a large burden and making sure that we brought the multitude of counsel into how we managed through a very difficult situation that presented new challenges every day. So, in the multitude of counselors, there's safety, the Bible says, and we would invite key leaders into those conversations depending on the season that we were in the short term, so that we were getting the collective wisdom of the group and being fully transparent and making some tough decisions. It was really a fun and challenging time that I think has grown us as a team and will make us a better company for the future.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is this the biggest challenge that you've personally been involved with there in some time? Those
Oh,
4 weeks? They sounded
Yeah.
fairly intense.
Yeah, it was very intense. It was very intense. We were literally 7 days a week communicating, and we have a few pictures of us on our video calls on Saturday, and our hair's all looking this way and that way, and things you wouldn't want to put out in the public eye.
Yeah.
But we were all right. It's Saturday. What's Monday gonna hold?
Oh, wow. Oh, and by the way, over this time, are you having these meetings virtually? Or
Everyone.
you're not even in person.
No, we had to do it virtually because
Oh, that makes it even harder.
Mike was quarantined in Colorado. Lawson's here in Nashville. Tom actually works and lives in Maryland, who is our capital markets guy,
Oh, wow.
who's the best in the industry, and he can work anywhere he wants. And then I was here in Nashville. I would go into the office, but I was the only one there. But we had a few essential functions that needed to take place in the office.
Wow. So these meetings twice a day is, again, yeah, it's happening remote. Yeah, man, I feel like communication in person is just so much more efficient, And I guess it depends what's being communicated. But but it's better now.
Yeah, we've kind of battled through and turned the corner, and things are relatively good right now.
Yeah, good. I'm really happy to hear that. The having those servicing agreements on your balance sheet as an asset, is that merely just listed on there as an AR? Is that why it's an asset, or there's another classification for mortgage companies that it's almost like more viewed as like a not real estate, but as a different type of asset other than AR?
It's a different type of asset. It's a real asset. Basically, you most of the time you put it on the books at the present value of the future stream of payments that you're going to be collecting. So a lot of companies will put it on there because for a lot of companies, it's a big part of their income, right? We generally will put it on there at a much more conservative value. And so we won't have the big swings in the value of that underlying asset. We're not financing it. Everything we do is cash. And so we're not as worried about that today.
Yeah.
We're more worried about just collecting a nice annuity stream in the future.
Gotcha. Okay, so the economy. So there's kind of two thoughts, at least that I've heard. I'm sure that you know a lot more here, but it sounds like, hopefully, I guess the more optimistic approach is this is going to have like a V-shaped negative effect on the economy. It kind of got bad, and then it gets real good, and then we're back to the other is more like the Nike swoosh, where it got bad and it takes a long time to get good again. What are your thoughts?
I fear like we're going to have maybe a Nike swoosh with a W in the middle somewhere. Right? And so I feel like it's going to be several years of recovery for small business. And primarily, I don't know what small businesses, who's actually going to be able to reopen. And again, I don't know then what the appetite of the public is going to be to reengage. I think we'll see some moments of recovery where confidence jumps up. But I fear there's this relapse somehow coming from COVID. We don't have a vaccine. People are going to get out there and people are going to get together again, and it's going to spread, most likely. And the public will overreact, and the news will overreact and blow it out of proportion, which could create another kind of quick dip until people take a deep breath and kind of just grind through it again. And at some point, there'll be a vaccine that'll really help spark, maybe another jump. And then a continual slow and steady rise. But I'm not an economist. That's my opinion.
If you were talking to a small business owner, let's say a pretty small business owner, say doing, I don't know, $5 million a year or something. I mean, this is a tough question because it just depends what industry they're in and so forth. But your general advice for someone running a small business, here we are mid-May 2020 with everything that's going on. Based on what you're seeing on the horizon, you're saying what? Make some cuts, prepare for this to not be great for some time, sit on as much cash as possible, or get aggressive. This is going to, like, what would be your advice?
Depends on your business. The first two things you said was manage your expenses. I'd get rid of unnecessary expenses that if my business was thriving, I might have become accustomed to. I'd get rid of those. one of the great things that we've learned through this process is also the simplicity of life is pretty sweet. And the trappings that we had with restaurants and wining and dining, and yeah, trips are nice and vacations are cool, but we've learned to just kind of be content.
Yes, that's a good point.
Stay with that.
Yeah.
Don't rush back into overspending. Be real conservative. You can't have enough cash, so save your cash, cut your costs, be slow and steady. The tortoise does win the race in almost every economy. There are some hares out there, right? But be slow and steady and give yourself time to think and be innovative. Because I'm telling you, innovation in every business is going to disrupt the future. It just has to. It always has been, even without COVID, without these seasons. But these seasons have created a whole different perspective for consumers, a different set of expectations. Well, get creative about how your business can meet those future expectations and give yourself time to think about it. And then don't be afraid to try it, which is where cutting some of your unnecessary expenses come in, because now you might set aside some money for some trial and error, for some R&D, for some innovation. And who knows, 1 out of every 5 ideas might be the one.
Right.
But the other 4 might cost you some money, so plan for it.
Yeah. How about inflation? Do you think, first of all, how does inflation work? And then do you think that we are going to come into a period of just ridiculous inflation over the next 5 years? The reason I asked was because inflation was supposed to get a whole lot worse than it did after the 08-09 thing. Or maybe it got real bad and I was unaware. But my understanding was inflation was just going to be awful. And then it never quite got to that extent. Now this, apparently we borrowed quite a lot more money this go round in a much shorter period of time. And so I guess that's a concern, right? And it's probably a valid concern that inflation is just going to be an issue in the coming years. Thoughts on that?
I'm more concerned about interest rates staying low than inflation. At the end of the day, right now, our federal government has borrowed so much money to stimulate the economy and maintain employment and try to help get through this, that if it allowed interest rates to spike much at all, it could put itself into bankruptcy simply on its own debt service. And so I think we've got, again, that's where I'm feeling like a balanced recovery slowly over time, kind of turning the borrowing into paying off debt and not trying to get too aggressive and ahead of ourselves as a country is probably the right play.
But now interest rates and inflation are basically tied together, right? Or do I have that?
Generally.
Okay. And inflation is basically money is cheap. And can you explain inflation?
Maybe. I'm not the best economist, but to me, inflation is with inflation, the value of your dollar goes down.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're able to buy less with a dollar than you could before. So prices for consumer goods and services are relatively higher than they had been. A steady level of inflation every year is healthy for an economy. Right? Because that means demand is consistent, supply is consistent. With supply and demand, things just kind of creep up a little bit year after year after year after year. And I think that's healthy for a lot of businesses, right? Healthy for a healthy economy. It's when those things spike or drop too fast is when we find ourselves in economic issues, right? I think that's way in a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. I think, it just seems like a tough job right now to be in charge of some of these decisions at that level at the feds or, certainly at the White House, because, it got so bad so quick and there were so many unknowns that you had to start making decisions or it was just going to be awful.
And that's where I said up front, I'm proud of our federal government on how it's handled things at almost every level. And, the problem with politics is that people have opinions, and most people's opinions are very one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat in the White House right now. They've had a tough job.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't care what side of the fence you're on. You have to admire the effort and the work and the thought that's been put in to try to keep our people safe. And while the economy has taken a pretty significant hit, they've also taken some real effort to try to balance and stimulate and help in a lot of ways that I think were pretty admirable. And so that's a huge job. I think about the burden we carried running a company of 500 people and the stresses that we felt about how are our people doing physically, how are we making sure that they're getting paid, how are we giving, all of the things for just that micro economy.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine the weight.
Yeah.
If you're responsible for the entire United States economy, which is hugely impacting the entire global economy.
Mm-hmm.
And the magnitude of the decisions that you're making in that process, we got to lift our government up in prayer and be really thankful.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Did you guys see you gotta go? Yeah,
I got a few minutes.
Yeah, no, we can wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Did you see a resurgence in mortgage payments when the CARES checks went out? Was that the free money that they sent out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the myth.
Okay.
Is that the CARES checks? I think they sent $1,200 or something to all of the taxpayers under a certain income level. That I don't think that we saw as big of an impact from the forbearance laws under the CARES Act. I think is one of the things that was misleading to people who felt like they didn't have to make their mortgage payment under a forbearance situation, and it was just forgiven. Where the truth is, it's not forgiven. It's just not considered a default, and you ultimately have to make it right again. If you ever want to refinance that loan, you have to get it paid up current, or you have to end up paying it when you sell that home on the back end. So it's not free money. It's just postponed.
Gotcha. All right, I got to let you out of here then. But I did want to ask you, and we touched about it a little bit, but I'm just kind of curious, like what some of your favorite business principles are, or even leadership principles. Like as you go about doing your thing, you're extremely successful in what you guys are doing. Some of the things that you pay attention to, or that you find yourself kind of often thinking about, is there any kind of leadership principles that you've kind of internalized?
Yeah, put people before profits, right? You don't put people at the risk of not making a profit, but if you have the decision to put people first. Put people before profits. If you take care of your people, they'll take care of the customer, and then the customer will take care of the company. And so there's a real cyclical nature in just caring for others. One of the first core convictions we talk about is I believe that we were created to serve others without exception. We already talked about being the hardest working person in the room and being the expert. There are two that we haven't discussed yet that go into our leadership principles. One is leave people better for the encounter. Every interaction you have with another human being is an opportunity to leave them better off than you found them. That goes true for people at restaurants, people you encounter walking across the street, your employees or team members or partners or vendors, as well as your customers. Always try to leave them better off for the encounter. And then last is do the next right thing. You make mistakes, own them, learn from them, move on. Don't make them again. Mm-hmm. Life kicks you where you don't want to be kicked.
Mm-hmm.
Just get up and hit your next best shot.
Yeah.
And those are kind of the leadership principles we talk about.
I love it. Matt Clarke, thank you so much for being on.
Thank
Real
you, Ken.
privilege.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.